Yes, we do have a good club. We have a great club, and because of that, that's why those guys want to come and speak here, right? Because we've got a really good attendance, and we had a really good record for this election. I think, wasn't almost everybody a member of this club?
Yeah.
The conservative club, the winners to our election. Anyway, we're really glad that Thomas Smith and Bo French have come to see us tonight. Bo French is a third-generation oil man. He's been in the oil and gas industry for over 3 decades and the former Tarrant County GOP chair. Bo is running to end the Green New Scam, wants to rid DEI from RRC, and stop the Islamization of Texas. So let's welcome Bo French.
Well, I am so happy to be here with all of these great patriots in this room. I just want to start off and say that in all 254 counties in Texas, Hood County, I have the highest vote total, highest percentage. So thank you for that. Where do you want me to stand?
Right there.
Doesn't matter. Okay. I don't like my photos, so I'm probably going to walk around a little bit.
That's okay.
Okay, so how many of you don't know who I am? Wow, okay, great. So that's going to make this easier. So I'm probably going to bore you a little bit with kind of the first part of what I say, and then we're going to get to the fun stuff in the second part. But I'll just briefly tell you a little bit about me. My name is Bo French. I grew up in Midland, Texas. Third generation oil business. My grandfathers were both in the oil business. My dad was in the oil business. And when I got out of school, I graduated from TCU, went to the TCU Range Management Program, and go Frogs. And I worked for my family for a couple of years on ranches and back and forth between the Midland office and the oil business. And if you recall, in the 90s, the oil business was not that great. And I said, Dad, listen, I think I probably ought to go learn how to do something else in case this oil business thing doesn't work out. And so I ended up leaving the family office and going and working for an investment firm. But we were focused on the energy sector. So that whole roughly 10 years, was very focused on the energy sector, not just domestically, but globally. And then in 2010, I got out of that business. If you remember, the financial crisis was not that great for a lot of investment firms. Ours actually did really well, but our biggest investors came to us and said, thank you for doing so well, but you are our best performing fund, but we got killed everywhere else, so we need our money back. So that's that ended that business. And then I just started doing kind of a one-off private equity and venture capital type deals in all different sectors, but including the energy sector. And then when my father died in 2013, my brothers and I took over his business. And so we've been very active in Midland in the oil business since then. And so it is a passion for me. I get asked a lot, why the Railroad Commission, why do I want to run for that? And it's because it's an important industry for Texas. It is. We produce almost half the oil and gas in the United States, right here in Texas. And the Railroad Commission has nothing to do with trains. It is the regulatory agency over the oil and gas industry and the mining industry here in Texas. And so it's critically important. Think of it as like, the Secretary of there's an Ag Secretary over agriculture, there's an Energy Secretary over energy. That's what the Railroad Commission is for Texas. And so, look, I got interested in running for it because I started looking at things that my opponent, main opponent, is the chairman of the Railroad Commission. And under his tenure, he passed, spearheaded, and then they passed a bunch of brand new regulations that just went into effect in July. So they really haven't had a full effect yet. But what they were, imagine if Obama's EPA or Biden's EPA wrote a bunch of regulations to try to harm the oil industry. That's what we passed. That's what we have now. And so, when you think about the importance of energy, energy is security, energy is national security. We don't want to constrain our oil business. We want the business to be strong because it creates a lot of jobs. And so a lot of these regulations just far overstepped what that regulatory body ought to be doing. So I'm going to look to correct that. And then I ran the primary, as you know, because some of you already told me you voted for me, so thank you for that. There were 5 people in the race, and I was the only person in that race who had not run for that position before. One ran as a Democrat, One ran as a libertarian, and then one ran as a Republican against Christian Craddock last cycle. So I was the only one who had not run, and then my opponent's name was Jim Wright. So Jim and I advanced to the runoff, but the way we did that is there was some polling that came out in January, and I think I was single digits. I mean, people were not even, I wasn't even on the radar. And we ran we've got an incredible team, and we ran a really good campaign. And what we did is we forced the incumbent, nearly 70% of people voted against the incumbent, which is unheard of. He had the lowest vote percentage of any incumbent in the history of the Railroad Commission. So, I mean, it's clear that people got the message that he's not the right guy. I mean, the fact that he's like a mega donor to Democrats probably didn't help him. The fact that under his tenure as head of the chairman of the Railroad Commission, they've actually increased the amount of contracts they were awarded via the HUB program, which is Texas DEI program. So the commission has gone from, if you rank all state agencies, including our most liberal universities, if you rank them as a percentage of their budget going to DEI spending, they went from 41st to now 9th. So in an era where all of us want to get rid of DEI, they've increased the focus on DEI. So I'll let them know on day one. So now the fun stuff. So that's kind of what I want to do, as Railroad Commissioner. And there's some other things too. They've, for instance, there are regional offices in the Railroad Commission. How many of you are actually familiar or in the oil business or familiar with the Railroad Commission? Not many, very usually. Usually there's a couple. It's a small percentage of who's going to be voting in this primary. But so I'll speak to you all. So there's regional offices in the Railroad Commission. Well, they've taken the power away from those regional offices, which really doesn't make sense to me, because the regional office out, say, in the Permian Basin is going to be very different than a regional office in East Texas. You have different water constraints. You have different topography. You're drilling wells, in different formations. And anyway, it just one size fits all regulations don't make sense. And so they centralize the power in Austin. Well, I'm a big believer that if you're centralizing power with a bunch of bureaucrats in Austin, that's probably a bad thing. Other things that I would do is just, I look at it like I'm a business friendly, which really just means free market friendly, conservative. And I would argue that my opponent is just letting probably the environmental science majors who are now working in the Railroad Commission, they're the ones coming up with these regulations, and he's just rubber stamping them. Well, that's not good for Texas. It's not good for the industry. It's not good for the jobs that industry creates. So there's going to be a lot of changes when I'm elected. Now, how did I even get here? I'm a business guy. I'm not a politician. I think some of you already mentioned you follow me on Twitter. That's kind of where I became Twitter famous, I guess. But I did that, or that happened because a couple years ago, I live in Fort Worth. Tarrant County is the third largest county in Texas, 2.5 million people. And the county chair position opened up. And by the way, where did you go? Where is it? Yeah. Good luck. It's a thankless job. So that position opened up, and I ran for it and won because I was concerned about the direction of Tarrant County. Just like the Democrats think they can flip Texas, well, Tarrant County is really an integral part of that because it is such a large county, and it's almost a bellwether for Texas. And so the Democrats were really focused on, in 2018, Beto O'Rourke actually won Tarrant County against Ted Cruz. And you could argue that there were some other issues there, but it was close enough that people were like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then in 2020, Joe Biden won Tarrant County. Again, you could argue there were some election integrity issues, and I'm the first guy to say that there probably was. I've seen enough evidence to be convinced of it. But what happens when Democrats win the county and take over a county? Republicans never win again. So I just knew that, I live in Tarrant County, so I wanted to make sure that what we did was protected for the future. And so I ran, and I just said, look, I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to raise more money than we've ever raised, and I'm going to spend it as a campaign. We're going to run a campaign on behalf of all the Republicans in Tarrant County, and we're going to flip this county back in the right direction. And so I think Trump won Tarrant County by about 5 points. We flipped a constable seat back from Democrat to Republican. So very, very proud of the job I did there. But really, what I did was, aside from all of that, I just said, hey, I have this platform, and for whatever reason, people want to know what the county chair thinks. problems I see that's going on in our society, in our culture, in our city, in our school boards, and our city councils. You know, there's 30 whatever cities in Tarrant County and 20 whatever school boards. And so I just started looking at all that stuff, and I started doing these exposés on just the rampant LGBTQ stuff that they were doing, all the degeneracy there, you know, all the DEI stuff, including the TCU. I picked on TCU a little bit, which upset a lot of my friends. But you know, I do that not because I'm want to harm, you know, these institutions. I want to improve them. I want to get rid of the DEI because I know that it's harmful to our society and to our culture. And so I started talking about those things, and obviously people, you know, picked up on that. And a couple of years ago, I started talking about Islam in Texas. And to my knowledge, I think I was the first elected official in Texas to really come out strong and talk about the threat of Islam. Why did I do that? Well, one, I've owned and operated businesses in the Middle East, so I kind of have a pretty good indicator, you know, experience of you know, the problem with the Islamists and what they want to do. You know, protecting oil industry folks in, you know, both in Iraq and Mozambique and Libya and places like that. You know, the garden spots of the world, I like to call them. And so I have a pretty good understanding of what their goals are. And you're probably insulated a little more from it here. And I looked, you don't have a mosque here yet, which is great. But you know, we have 400 mosques in Texas. And most of them are hidden in the big cities, in the big metro areas, in Houston and DFW, San Antonio, Austin, those kind of places. But they're coming. I guarantee you, you're going to have one here soon. And I like to say, you know the difference? You hear the different terms of, you know, a jihadist or, you know, radical Islam. You know the difference between radical Islam and Islam is? Anybody? So radical Islam wants to kill you. We all know that. They want to either convert you, make you submit, or they're going to kill you. They don't even say that. Regular Islam just wants the radical Islamists to do that to you. They're okay with it. So it's all the same. There's no difference. They all believe the same thing. They all read the same text. I've read it. It's very clear what they want to do. And so it's coming, and we're allowing it. And so I'm just knowing that that's the plan, and being frustrated with just sort of this lack of, nobody was talking about it in Texas. And so I just started talking about it all the time, doing exposés, and you know, lo and behold, you get to this campaign cycle, and almost every candidate was talking about it. And I'm like, hallelujah, people are finally talking about it. And then you get to, you know, the problem we had to ban Sharia law. And I'm like, hallelujah, 90, you know, the best performing proposition we had in the primary. So people are waking up to it, which really gives me a lot of encouragement. But I would tell you this, we can't stop at banning Sharia law. And people ask me all the time, well, what can we actually do? And again, I just go back to something else I've said. Well, we've allowed this to come into our country. And it's not just the ideology, it's the people who bring it. So we've allowed, you know, millions and millions and millions of Muslims to come into our country. After 9/11, when George Bush was on, who I was a huge supporter of, by the way, and knew him because he lived in Midland at one time. After 9/11, George Bush was telling us on TV all the time, Islam is a religion of peace. And post 9/11, George Bush doubled the Muslim population in the United States. Barack Obama then doubled it again. And then we had Joe Biden, and what a disaster that was. We had, you know, estimates are north of 20 million people came into the country illegally. We don't know how many of those were Muslims. Now, the U.S. government official numbers say that there are 18,000 known people with terrorist ties who came into the country. That's just the ones they know about. Well, think about it. 9/11 was 19 people. 18,000 of them are here, minimum. So we have a real problem, and I think, look, the threat of terrorism obviously is, you know, we had, I think, 5 terrorist attacks in the last couple of weeks in America. So obviously that is a problem that we need to be focused on, but I'm actually more concerned about just the civilizational and cultural shift that we're watching in this country. I'm 56 years old. I've seen in my lifetime, just, you know, and been involved in conservative politics, and all my life, our leaders have said, you know, Republicans have said, you know, we're small government, we're low taxes, we're low regulation, we don't really want to fight on all those social issue things because those are really losing issues, and we'll turn off people, and we need to be a big tent and all those things. And I look around as a conservative. What if we conserve?
Yeah, really, no kidding.
I mean, what's happened to our culture? I mean, I'm looking around this room, and it's pretty unified here, I would say. But you go into DFW, there are entire cities that don't look anything like the Christian America that we know. They're putting up, statues for Diwali and whatever, all that is. They're building mosques right and left. Pretty soon they're going to be, playing the call to prayer, just like they are in Michigan. I'm sure you've seen those videos, and in New York. Yeah, and so it's coming. Now, we can either stop it or we can not stop it. So I argue that we need to deport every single one. I don't care if they're born here, if they're a citizen. They all need to go. Every last one. So I think my campaign has gotten a lot of attention because I say these things, and I was kind of the first person to really say these things. And there are 100 million people in America who need to go. We have 50 million illegals, and we have 50 million foreign visa holders here. And I would argue that all of them need to go. Now, we can probably make an exception here and there, and we all know someone who came here and whatever. I get that. But we need to shoot for the moon because our country and our culture depend on it. Because I know I've got young kids. My kids are still high school and middle school. And I worry about what this country is going to look like for them and for their kids. Because I've already seen just such a dramatic change in my lifetime. Actually, some of my kids are like, Dad, can we move out to a smaller town? So I get that question a lot. It may happen. I love this area. So that kind of just sums up a little bit about why I'm here and what I'm doing. The landscape for the runoff is pretty simple. He and I both got pretty much the same vote total in the election. But I mean, he is just like when you think of Rhino, you think of this guy. He actually said one time in something on Twitter. I should call it X now. I still call it Twitter. He said one time he doesn't have an ideology. Think about that. He's running in the Republican primary and doesn't have an ideology. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I want all of my elected officials, everyone. I mean, from dog catcher on up, I want everyone to be outspoken America First warriors who are fighting for the values of this country. I mean, what are they going to do? I get it that, a lot of the issues I talk about don't necessarily fall under the purview of the Railroad Commission, obviously. But a lot of these issues didn't fall under the purview of being a county chair either. But I talk about them a lot, and I would argue that I helped move the Overton window so that more people are talking about these things. And so if you think for a second that I'm just going to go check a bunch of boxes, sitting up there in the Railroad Commission and only focused on the oil and gas industry and the mining industry, you're mistaken. I'm going to be in Austin hammering the legislature, hammering the governor to do the things that I know that voters care about. When I go to groups like this, I'm just going to do it right now. How many people in this room are worried about the Islamification of Texas? It's 100%. Every time. Every time it's 100%. And so, we need to start taking dramatic steps. And frankly, some of these steps are going to make people uncomfortable. But they have made us uncomfortable all of my life. They chastise us for going to church, for being pro-life. All the issues that, they tell us that we shouldn't really fight on. The left has been attacking us systematically in every institution. They've infiltrated every institution. And so it is time that we fight back. Someone said, go on offense a minute ago. I totally agree. We need to be on offense, not just defense anymore. Being a conservative doesn't mean just trying to slow down the pace of decay that we've witnessed over the last number of decades. So, I appreciate you all having me here tonight. I'll answer some questions, but let me just close with this. April 6th, we're having an event up in Fort Worth. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have some surprises to announce. I'd love for you all to come. It's going to be a big party. We'll feed you dinner. So if you want to come to that, you can find it on my Twitter, or I think there's a link on my website. Or if you don't have any of that, you can come talk to me and I'll get some information. Or John, seriously, he can help me. John over there, and Ted Cruz, sweatshirt. He's helping my campaign. But I appreciate you all, and well, let me ask some questions. What do you have for me?
So have any of the other people that were in the race that did not make the runoff, have they endorsed yet?
Not yet. I've had a meeting with one of them, and I'm optimistic about that one. The Democrat, I'm not even going to talk to. I don't think that's worth my time. And then the guy who was a libertarian, I don't think he's going to get involved in the race either way. But I don't think it's not something that's needed. But the one guy I've talked to, I actually probably have the best relationship with of any of the other candidates, and he apparently started a podcast or some kind of show or something. He asked me to come on the show. So anyway, I feel like that might happen one of these days. But we have some other big endorsements. I didn't even mention that. I've been endorsed by. So if you know of a conservative state rep, they probably endorsed my campaign, because almost all of the actual conservatives have. And then some of the very conservative congressmen have as well. So all the actual conservatives are rallying around my campaign, which is really nice, because it's just clear. You want a conservative who's going to be an unapologetic American First warrior, or do you want a white man? It's that simple.
Historically, each state in the United States will make people swear on a Bible to take the office, and they would swear to support the Constitution and God. Is there a way that we can use the Constitution and stop these idiots that are getting elected to Congress and getting it there? Because they're just laughing in our face when they say they just want to swear on the Quran, and they're up there.
So the question is, how do we stop these elected officials swearing in on a Quran? We have 2 state reps who are Muslims in Texas already, and then obviously we have some congressmen and women that are Muslims, and so who knows who Ilhan Omar is? Yes, I'm a big fan of hers. I've talked about her a lot. And just as an aside, I'll get you your answer. But I mean, how crazy is it that we imported 80,000 Somalis who are, excuse my language, but they're literally the dumbest people on earth. They're like the lowest IQ population on earth. And we bring them here. Of course, they're not going to assimilate. And so, what do? Like the Democratic Party, which my working theory on the entire Democrat Party is this: it is one giant money laundering operation to build money from taxpayers, from the people like us who work. That's why they're so organized. That's why, every one of these elections, the Democrats have this many people working doors and knocking doors, and it's because they're all getting paid. They're taking it from taxpayers. It's all going through this big, huge money laundering operation. And Minnesota is just a peek into that. Right? All of these people were getting, or they set up daycare centers, fraudulent daycare centers, getting millions and millions, billions of dollars of taxpayer money. And lo and behold, Ilhan Omar, who 4 years ago couldn't rub 2 nickels together, and now she's got $30 million all of a sudden, making $180,000 a year in Congress. So we have to stop that. But that just goes to my point, your question. But first of all, there ought to be a law. We need to put it into law that you have to swear in on the Bible. The swearing in on the Quran, which is, as Tom mentioned earlier, is a subversive government structure that is looking to supersede the U.S. Constitution. And I'm sorry, I'm just not okay with that. And so, I want politicians. Donald Trump had a quote a year or two ago that I have used a lot, and it is, "We can just do things." And I mean, I really don't care what the law is. I mean, I care what the law is, but Republicans have not used the law that we have. That's what I really want to say. Republicans have not used the law or wielded their power. We always talk about Republicans get up there and they don't ever do anything. Democrats always do everything. And so I'm a big advocate of Republicans for the first time. Like, let's actually wield power and do what we can do to address all of these issues. Don't be scared. Yes.
Okay. My question has to do with regulation, and I'm of the mindset of the drill baby drill. I like being energy independent and not relying on any other nation for our energy. But that said, I know that there is a relationship between the office you're running for and TCEQ. And TCEQ right now, their regulations that they have need to catch up with the data centers. And I think that data centers, and I bring in TCEQ because they're giving them permits through TCEQ to build their own power plants to power these mega centers. I'd like to know more, because there's that relationship between your office and TCEQ. I'd like to know your thoughts on changing some of the regulations to maybe put the brakes on how much energy these power plants are using in Texas.
Yeah, so if you can hear the question, it was specifically about TCEQ, which just generally speaking, I would say that we just need to get rid of TCEQ and start over. There's been some talk about how we could do that, and they've talked about, because the Railroad Commission is elected people and not appointed people, which I'd be a huge fan of, just rolling things like that under one body, so that because it is all related. But yeah, I think that, you know, a lot of, I get asked about the data centers a lot. I know Matt's worked on that a lot, and appreciate the work he's done there. I'm not an expert on the data centers, you know, because they're not looking at building any in Fort Worth. They're looking to build them out in places like this. So that's something I need to bone up on a little more. I'll just be candid. But it does appear like Texas is ground zero for wanting to be the data center capital of the world. And I think it's probably going to happen because there seems to be, you know, billions of dollars behind it, and you know, like I said, people in cities aren't affected by it, but communities like yours are. And so we're gonna have to figure out how to balance that in an appropriate way. So I'm hopeful that we can find that solution that works. You know, there's lots of, I don't know why they want to build one right here. We can go out, you know, way further out in West Texas, you know, and put it somewhere. But then you have a water issue, right? And so, but I was talking to a friend of mine who knows more about this than I do. And one of the things he said was that the new silicon, the new chips that they're getting ready to start using in the data centers use something like 1/100th of the amount of cooling water that the current system does. So hopefully there's, you know, just with technology, there's also a way that we can limit, you know, how much water is used. And there's talk about, you know, recycling essentially the water that's produced from drilling. There's talk about, you know, how we can use that in a way that doesn't affect, you know, the groundwater that you would need in a community like this. So I'm not an expert in that, but it is, you know, we face challenging times because Texas is a growing state. And, you know, I think often, I've said this before, a lot of Republicans just want the growth, like growth at all costs. And I have long advocated for not all growth is good. You know, some growth is not good. And, you know, just like having, you know, millions of new voters in Texas that aren't American citizens, that's not a good thing. So, you know, I've pushed back in Fort Worth a lot and built a lot of apartments. And I just said, we have totally sunk ourselves by allowing all these apartments in, because guess who lives in apartments? Democrats. Right? So no wonder Fort Worth has turned pretty blue. But you know, so when you push out single families, you know, into rural communities, you build high density apartments, you're going to end up with a bunch of Democrats.
That's right.
So you know, I call them line go up Republicans. You know, they just want the line to keep going up, the growth. But yeah, I think in all these issues, you know, we need to look at what's best best for us, for Texans, for the people who are here. You know, my family's been in America since the 1600s. You know, fought in the Revolutionary War. You know, both sides of the Civil War. You know, came to Texas in the 1800s. So you know, this place matters to me, and I know it matters to you. I can tell by the look on your face. And we got to fight for it. Yes, sir.
Being a candidate for the Railroad Commission, we have some oil-related issues internationally, both Venezuela and now the Strait of Hormuz. Do you have any perspective over how the United States should be leveraging?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of kind of the Don Rowe doctrine, as Trump has talked about, you know, a play on the Monroe Doctrine. There's a reason why Trump has focused on Venezuela and Iran. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. Iran has the third largest oil reserves in the world. And 20% of the world's oil goes through the Straits of Hormuz, because that region obviously is very oil rich. So, you know, Iran, you know, I'm old enough to remember, you know, every night when there was only 3 channels on TV, I see a lot of nodding heads in here, and every night on the news, you know, this day 347 of the Iranian hostage crisis. You know, so I mean, Iran has been at war with us and our values for 47 years. I'm generally anti-war, but I've always said if we do go to war, we need to overwhelm them and kill them all immediately, and not do these 20-year things. So, you know, I think Trump believes that too. It seems like they're trying to do this as cleanly as possible without committing ground troops. Even though, I mean, Trump says a lot of things, but I would say never judge Trump on what he says, because he's always in negotiating mode, you know, trying to apply leverage mode, to judge him on what he does. And so I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic that at the end of the day, there will be no ground troops in Iran, and we'll have a friendlier government there that's a little bit more pro-Western like it used to be, and they won't try to hold the world oil markets hostage by limiting the traffic through the Straits of Hormuz.
First of all, I ask that that oil and pipelines aren't the only facilities in the state. Usually they get all the attention. I believe you're going to do great things in this position, but how do I know that, you know, it's not just a stepping stone to another position, with all due respect?
That's a fair question, and what I would tell you is I never really wanted to be a politician, so it's not my goal. I'm a business guy, and that's how I approach, you know, what I'm going to do at the Railroad Commission. I don't pretend to be an expert on every issue, but what I have done my entire career is analyze businesses, figure out how to make things more efficient, you know, look at regulations, and so, you know, I'll bring that perspective to the Railroad Commission. And look, I just want Texas to be a stronger state. I want America to be a stronger country, and I want to protect Texans and our jobs in the oil industry, because that's important. And so, you know, for instance, rolling back some of those new regulations that they just put in place, which, by the way, increased costs on the operators. So what does that do? If the cost is higher to produce the oil, that means we have to have a higher oil price for those companies to keep producing oil. So what does that mean? It means you're going to pay more at the pump, right? So, I mean, look, as Texans and someone who's in the oil business, you know, high oil prices are fun for a little bit, but when you see, like, when I'm driving out here, your guys' diesel price is a little lower than it is in Fort Worth. I filled up today, it was $5.30 a gallon for diesel. So, you know, obviously that's not good. That really hurts everyday people, you know, in the pocketbook. So we have to, in my view, the best way to handle, you know, what's good for the oil business is to not have $30 oil prices. Obviously, that would be killing, but lower the cost to produce, so that even at a slightly lower cost, the companies can stay in business, keep producing oil, and keep all those jobs going. So that's what's important to me. And, you know, as for the future, I have no idea. I never thought I'd be right here. So, you know, I'm focused on this, and hope that I can do a good job and make Texas stronger. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? All right, you can find more information on me. We've got some push cards here. John's got them somewhere. And then BoFrench.com. Or if you're on Twitter, and if you're not on Twitter, I highly recommend you get on Twitter because that's where all the political action actually happens. I do very little on Facebook. Everything I do is on Twitter with BoFrenchTX on Twitter. So I thank you all and look forward to seeing y'all again sometime. Thank you.